It's the amazing Rico Brogna podcast with your host, Evan Roberts.
It is episode 549 of Rico Brogna. And for the first time in 112 years, we actually get to talk about a Mets victory. As the Mets finally win a game, the 9 days of losing finally over. It wasn't easy. I mean, they made it very stressful. They made it very painful. But this is the first time in a long time we could actually have a nice, calm edition of Rico Brogna as the Mets salvage the final game of the 3-game series against the Texas Rangers in dramatic fashion, with Pete Alonso hitting a walk-off 3-run home run, the 5th walk-off home run of his Mets career. That is more than any other Met in the history of the franchise. He had 4 along with Wilmer Flores until he hit his 5th. And I was even looking it up because I was like, damn, that is unbelievable that that's the record. So I saw Darryl Strawberry's walk-offs. He had a few, but not 5. Bobby Bonilla had a handful of walk-offs, but not 5. Mike Piazza, there's a few that jump out at us. The one against Trevor Hoffman, but he didn't have 5. So Pete Alonso not only is the all-time home run hitter in Met history, most home runs in the history of the franchise, but now he's the king of the walk-off home run. And a few of his other walk-offs I remember, like specifically in 2022, he hit one against the Cardinals right before they went on a road trip. They were losing the game in the 10th inning. I think there was some kind of defensive miscue that had happened in the when Edwin Diaz blew the save. It may have been the bottom of the 9th inning. It may not have been the 10th, but they had blown a lead, and Alonso hit a massive walk-off home run. And that one jumps out at me. He hit one against the Rays a couple of years ago when they had a ferocious comeback in 2023. But this was so damn important. Because despite the hand-wringing by all of us, despite dunning this team numerous times over the last couple of days, they are alive. I mean, they have a shot to make the playoffs. They're in a playoff spot, but they need to win a game here and there. They're not going to be able to lose every single day and make the postseason. And losing this game and having it become a 9-game losing streak and another game that they had a lead late in would have been just another kick in the groin. I'd say it's rock bottom, but this franchise and this team this season has had so many rock bottoms. I can't definitively say that, but what I can tell you is they needed this victory. And they certainly needed Pete Alonso in that moment to win the game, because if this game went to an 11th inning, I don't know where they were going. You know, Ryan Stanek did an incredible job in the 10th inning, and I guess Mendy could have gone back to him in the 11th inning, but they needed to win that game in the bottom of the 10th inning. They did. You have 2 on and nobody out, all predetermined, because rightfully so, if you're Bruce Bochy, you're going to walk Juan Soto with the dopey runner on second rule. And Pete has had moments this season, really over the last few months, because early this season, he carried them. And we acknowledge that April Pete Alonso, May Pete Alonso, even June Pete Alonso, the Mets don't build the lead that they built without Pete for the first few months of the season. But he has been as big of a culprit as everybody else in lacking big hits over the last couple of months. And in game 2 of this series, episode 548, if you want to go into the archives, because we ended up doing Rico's for every game of this 3-game series against Texas, when Pete came up in the bottom of the 9th inning with a runner on and 1 out down by a run, I had visions of Alonso saving them then. I thought the Mets needed Alonso to save them then. And what did he do? He swung through a fat curveball on a 2-2 pitch. Well, in this game, obviously not trailing, so I guess there's a tad less pressure than the day before. Pete finally came through at that moment that hopefully, and I don't say this with confidence, but I say it because I'm hopeful. Hopefully the hit that can relax this team and get them going. Because here's the reality of the final 2 weeks of the year. And we'll go deeper into this game. We'll pick the Rico I'm the Man Now star of the series, the net negative. We'll read your emails. We got a lot to do. Plus, we'll react to the rotation changes that are upon us for next week. But here's the reality of where they are. It is now very tight. They have a lead, but it's tight. And it's not just Cincinnati, and it's not just San Francisco. The Arizona Diamondbacks are a threat. So you now have 3 teams that are chasing you, 3 teams that are within striking distance of you. And what that means is over the final 12 games of the season, because stunningly, we are somehow down to 12 games, they got to win a few of them. They can't. They built a lead in April and May, and I guess the first few weeks of June. Okay, they earned that. They earned the gigantic lead they created for a wild card spot. So the fact that they're still in a wild card spot is sort of deserved. I mean, it helps that the National League and those teams we mentioned haven't stepped up. It helps that 2 of those teams are sellers. But they won a lot of games earlier this season. They're going to need to win games over the final 2 weeks. The fact that they're still in a playoff spot, despite losing 8 in a row, despite being a bad team since the middle of June, despite having 1, 2, 3 different 7-game losing streaks. How does that happen? The fact that all of that has occurred and they are still in a playoff spot in which they control their destiny is nothing short of a miracle. But now they have to win. And I am hopeful that a game like Sunday, a game that they almost blew and survived and got a huge hit from one of their core guys, maybe, just maybe, this can relax this team and they could start to play decent baseball. I don't know the amount of wins they have to have over their last 12 games because I don't know what the Reds are going to do. I mean, the Reds just got swept by the A's, so it's tough to believe in them. But could they possibly go out and play really well over their final 12 games? Sure, it's possible, or 13 games for them. What are the Giants going to do? I know they just lost 2 out of 3 to the Dodgers, and they've got 4 more games against the Dodgers, and they're about to play the Diamondbacks. But who the hell knows? I don't know what they're going to do in their final 13 games. And the same thing with Arizona. I mean, the Diamondbacks have a brutal schedule, but they're in it. And they've got guys who've been there before. So I can't even tell you, all right, it's 7-5. That'll be good enough. I don't know. I mean, obviously, if these teams, the Diamondbacks, the Giants, and the Reds, continue to be right around 500, which is where they are, which shows you it's the Mets that have blown this lead more than any of those 3 teams getting back into it. If the Mets were halfway decent, there'd be no third wild card spot. But that's the danger zone of the spot the Mets have put themselves in. There are 12 games left. They could go 8-4 and not make it because all it takes is one of these teams to go on a heater. Now, they're not showing any signs of going on a heater. The Giants had that great victory on Friday. Patrick Bailey hit a grand slam. They beat the Dodgers. The place is pandemonium. It felt like a playoff game for them. And then they lost the next 2 games. And one of those games, they had their best pitcher on the mound in Logan Webb. So can you really trust the San Francisco Giants? The answer is no. The Diamondbacks, they play the Giants, Phillies, Dodgers, and Padres. That's a brutal schedule. And they're a 500 team. And obviously Cincinnati just got swept by the A's. So it's possible the Mets could go 7-5 and it's good enough. It's also possible 7-5 ain't going to be good enough. They put themselves in this dangerous spot where I don't know what one of those 3 teams are capable of doing. So it would behoove the Mets to build off of this Sunday win by, let's say, winning 2 out of 3 against the Padres, sweeping the Nationals at home, winning a series against the Cubs, sweeping the Marlins. Like, leave no doubt. Go win 10 out of 12. They're due to win 10 out of 12, considering how bad they've been recently and how really bad they've been over the last few months. But let's get into this game because there is a lot of good and there is some bad. Let's get to the good first. The good is obviously Pete Alonso. They needed him. He was not having the greatest game in the world. He was 0 for 3. We mentioned the critical at-bat he had in Saturday's game, and he came up with 2 on, nobody out in the 10th inning. Third pitch he saw from Luis Curvelo. He went opposite field, which Pete has done a lot of this year. This is for the Rico Brogna bingo card holders, it was Piazza-esque. For those that know, we have a Rico Brogna bingo card game that was created by one of our loyal listeners. And one of the things that I tend to do, and it's so true, I don't care, I'll do it all the time, is when a right-hand hitter goes opposite field, it was Piazza-esque. So great job by Pete Alonso. The other guy, and the other positive from Sunday's game, is Ryan Stanek. The thing about Ryan Stanek, and I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago on the Rico, and again, I didn't say it with confidence. I just said it matter-of-factly about him. He's a veteran who has a lot of postseason experience, who last year turned into the Mets' most reliable reliever during their October run, which says two things. Number one, he was able to turn his season around. And number two, the Met bullpen wasn't very reliable for the fact that Ryan Stanek turned into their most reliable reliever, not named Edwin Diaz. But my point is he's capable of it. You could take the regular season numbers, and they have not been good, just like you could have taken the regular season numbers last year from Ryan Stanek, and you could throw them out because all you need from Ryan Stanek is a hot month. That's all you need. And in this series, we didn't mention it much on Friday, but on Friday, when they were down 6-0, they needed their bullpen to keep them in the game. And their bullpen, up until the seventh inning, up until Gregory Soto, did everything they could. And one of the guys who contributed to it was Ryan Stanek. He faced 5 batters. He got all of them out. And if the Met offense did more, combined with Gregory Soto not giving up a 2-run home run to Dylan Moore, and the Mets came back on Friday, which they certainly had a chance to do, it was 6-3 in the 4th inning, we may have looked back at what Stanek did on Friday and said, wow, that was huge, but it was forgotten about. But in this game, game 3 of this series, he's forced in because Mendy used all his quote-unquote trustworthy bullpen arms. Let's go over who the trustworthy bullpen arms actually are. They're Brooks Raley, and Brooks Raley's performance in this game was, mixed. He gave up a leadoff hit, he got 2 big outs, and he hit Josh Smith. And Mendy pulled him to go to Reed Garrett, which I'll get to later. That's in the bad side of game 3 of this series. So Raley was a mixed bag, but he has certainly earned the, hey, I trust him. So he's in that mini circle of trust. The other guy is Tyler Rogers, who came in and did a really good job. Came in and pitched a 1-2-3 inning, but that was after they blew the lead. And the third guy is Edwin Diaz, who came in and sort of got lucky, but got through the 9th inning. After that, it's a crapshoot. Gregory Soto's been terrible, so you can't include him. Ryan Helsley is hell. You can't include him. And Reed Garrett has proven he ain't it either. So Ryan Stanek is one of those guys where no one trusts him by any stretch. But I think of the remaining relievers that were available in this game, he was the guy you were going to go to in the 10th inning against the heart of the Texas batting order, especially when you look at who is coming up. A righty in Langford, a lefty in Peterson. But if the Mets went to Soto, it would have been Dylan Moore coming off the bench. You could see that coming from a mile away. Another righty in Adolis Garcia, and then a lefty in Rowdy Tellez. Same thing. If you go to Soto, it's clearly going to be Jake Berger. So do you want Gregory Soto? No, thanks. He stinks. Do you want Ryan Helsley? No, thanks. He stinks. Do you want a kid in Dom Hamill who would be making his major league debut? Probably not ideal. So Ryan Stanek wasn't a reliable option. He was just the best possible option in what the Mets actually have in their bullpen. And quite frankly, if this game, and I say it with a big giant if, because the Mets have lost 8 in a row, and they had lost 8 in a row, and they have beaten the hope out of all of us. That's why I'm not going to smile that much on this edition of the Rico. I'm going to deep down hope they turn this thing around, but I don't think they will. You know what I mean? I think that represents most Met fans. I'm going to watch, I'm going to hope, I'm going to dream, but the truth is I don't trust this team. With that said, if this game turns out to be the game that turns the season around, it's like the anti-Friday the 13th game against Tampa, the game that turned the season the other way. Remember that game? The game that started this mess over the last 90-plus games when Clay Holmes got pulled early. They blew a big lead. Paul Blackburn threw batting practice. The Mets lost, and then they proceeded to be the worst team in baseball for the next 3 months. If this game bookends that run and the Mets get hot, make the playoffs, and give us some excitement, Ryan Stanek's 10th inning has to go down as one of the most important innings of the season. It has to. Think about your emotions if you watch this game. I fully understand that there are going to be a lot of people listening, watching the Rico Brogna, whether you downloaded it, wherever you download your podcast or live on YouTube. There are plenty of people who said, I didn't watch this game. The Mets beat the care out of me. I was watching Giants Cowboys, what a classic. Or I was watching the Jets get their heads shoved into a locker. Or maybe you were watching Eagles Chiefs and you never got to the Met game. So for those that didn't watch it, I'm just going to describe the emotions of the Met fans that did. When Ryan Stanek comes into a tie game in the top of the 10th inning against the heart of the Texas Ranger batting order after the Mets blew a 2-0 lead innings earlier, and the Mets blew a lead the day before, and the Mets have lost 8 in a row, there's no one who actually thinks this is going to end well. Not a damn person thinks, oh yeah, Ryan Stanek will get through this inning, and the Met offense will score some runs. Nobody. In fact, what I was thinking was, you know what, Ryan, if you can get through this inning allowing a run, I'll take my chances with Soto, Alonso, Nimmo, and a runner on second. I'll take my chances. I won't be confident, but I'll take my chances. And think about what Stanek did. He gets Wyatt Langford to fly out the center field, does advance the runner, but he gets an out. He walks Jock Peterson. And I think a part of him was like, you know what? Even though Jock Peterson is a 170 hitter, he had 2 hits in this game. He was the one who got the big hit against Reed Garrett. You have a base open. It's not the worst thing in the world to pitch around Jock Peterson. Adolis Garcia is fresh off the IL, and he can't run. So he walks Jock Peterson. He strikes out Adolis Garcia, and he gets Rowdy Tellez, who at times has been a Met killer, had 2 hits in this game, came through with a huge hit in the 8th inning of Saturday's game that could have been the game-winning hit if it didn't bounce into the stands. He gets Rowdy Tellez to pop up in foul territory to Mark Vientos. And Ryan Stanek had a freak out on the mound. And rightfully so. He put his fingers in the air. He was screaming. And so were we. He deserved every second of it. And he was probably thinking, now score a damn run. Somehow I got through this inning by some miracle. Now score a run. So marvelous work by Ryan Stanek. That should not be ignored. Good work by Francisco Lindor. He gives up a leadoff hit to Kyle Higashioka in a tie game ahead of the count in the 9th inning. Very promptly, he gets pinch run for. And what happens is very typical. When Edwin Diaz puts guys on base, they will run on him. And Edwin Diaz, unfortunately, when you put the leadoff man on and that guy steals immediately, you allow a situation where you can give up a run without giving up a hit, or another hit, that is. Because Bochy, rightfully so, bunted with Cody Freeman, advanced him to third base. Now I got a runner on third less than 2 outs, and Edwin Diaz needs a strikeout. He didn't get a strikeout. He got a soft line drive hit right at Lindor. Francisco didn't let this one go through his glove, catches it, and doubles off Duran at third base. A huge play. Another one of those underrated, if this game turns the season around, plays that you should remember. And then the other good was the truth, Nolan McLean, who continues to prove every 6 days or 5 days or whenever they give him the baseball that he's legit. With young pitching, you don't know. We've seen the ups and the downs from Jonathan. I'm sure we'll see ups and downs from Brandon Sproat. It is normal with young pitching to get ups and downs, which is why it's not ideal to super heavily rely on young pitching in the midst of a pennant race. But Nolan McLean appears to be a young pitcher that's different. He appears to be one of those young pitchers who comes up and immediately looks like a veteran. Immediately looks like Logan Webb. And the reason I think Logan Webb is the guy that jumps out at me is because when I think of innings eaters in Major League Baseball, I think of Logan Webb. And also think about the stuff. I mean, Nolan McLean gets ground balls. He's got a sweeper that moves like a video game. Logan Webb has some of those attributes. So just a comp in my head. But my point is, McLean looks like a veteran. When he doesn't have his best stuff, he still finds ways. When he misses on close pitches, he doesn't let it get to him. He doesn't really let anything get to him. And so Nolan McLean is proving, despite the fact that he's now only made 6 major league starts, that if the Mets are fortunate enough to be a postseason team, and if the Mets are fortunate enough to be able to line up their rotation, he is the unquestioned ace of the New York Mets. And you say that as a negative about the Met rotation, but it's also a positive about him. Obviously, if the Mets had a legitimate ace, you would just say, oh, great, that's a number 2. But he looks like an ace as well. He's pitching like one. And what he did in this game was really impressive. He threw 40 pitches in the first 2 innings. And I was fearful that that would kind of write his death sentence in terms of not being able to go deep into the game. He had a 7-pitch third inning. It was so important to have an economical inning, and he got it. He even had a relatively quick 4th inning that included giving up a couple of hits, but getting a huge double play against Adolis Garcia. He made a huge pitch against Wyatt Langford to get out of the 5th inning when they had 2 on and 2 out. And then in the 6th inning, same thing. He hits Garcia, gives up a base hit to Tellez, and gets a 6-4-3 double play against Josh Young. One of the perks of being a ground ball pitcher is that when you get yourself into trouble, there's a damn good chance that you're going to be able to get yourself out of trouble by getting a ground ball that's hit right at somebody. And he was able to do that multiple times in this game. His pitch count was 92 through 6, so not going to yell about it. Not surprised. We haven't seen Nolan McLean throw 110 pitches. But I'll tell you about Nolan McLean that I can predict the future on. Right now, it's different. He doesn't have experience going into triple digits on any kind of frequent basis, but he feels like someone who next year or the year after that can certainly be that guy. He can be that guy. I'm not asking to push him to do that now since it's something he's not familiar with. It would be nice because it would save Mendy from having to go to the bullpen. But 92 pitches through 6 innings, far cry from the Sproat decision from Saturday. Another outstanding effort by Nolan the Truth McLean, because here's the truth about him. He's the ace of the New York Mets. And no matter where this season goes, even if it ends with them missing the playoffs in devastating fashion, one thing we can be very hopeful about in 2025 is that man, Nolan McLean. I hope we'll feel the same way about Brandon Sproat, but he's only made 2 major league starts. I think through the 6 that we've seen from McLean, you can feel confident. I do have a warning about Nolan McLean. And trust me, I'll give you my opinion on this subject in a minute, but I want to give you the information, and then everybody in the Rico audience can decide for themselves. A part of the speculation around why the Mets didn't call up Nolan McLean earlier, or Brandon Sproat, or Jonah Tong, was to help maintain their rookie status for 2026. And the reason why you would want a young player to retain their rookie status is that if that person goes out and wins Rookie of the Year or wins an award, it could lead to a draft pick for your franchise. It's not about service time, so don't get confused. It's not about money. It's about, hey, we could add a valuable draft pick if we have a young player come up and win Rookie of the Year. Is that the reason why David Stearns didn't call up Nolan McLean? I hope not, because it's not a good reason. As much as we'd all love an extra draft pick, and that draft pick could turn into the next great player. I'm not minimizing it. I also don't think for a team that has championship aspirations, you should be making decisions around what can hurt or help your team based on that. If this was the Pittsburgh Pirates or this was the Washington Nationals, yeah, ironically enough, if this was a young team going nowhere, I'd be more in tune with that draft pick really matters, and I'm going to hurt myself from winning games in July because I want to possibly help myself get a draft pick. You can't do that if you're the Mets. You can't do that if you're a team trying to win. I hope the Mets didn't do that. But I bring this up because the way to lose rookie status for a pitcher is to throw 50 innings. So even though he will have less service time than the 45 days required to lose your rookie status, if you throw 50 innings, you're not a rookie. Well, let's check the leaderboard. Nolan McLean just threw 6 innings. He is now at 37 2/3 innings, which means he is 12 1/3 innings away from not being a rookie anymore. We will get into the rotation and how this thing can be lined up for the final 2 weeks. But as of right now, Nolan McLean is likely to get 2 starts. Not 3, 2. His next one will likely be next weekend against the Nationals. It could be Saturday. It could be Sunday. But looking at the way they're lining things up, it will be Saturday against the Nationals. And following the schedule, his next start after that could technically be Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday against Chicago, or it could be Friday against Miami. Either way, he's only making 2 starts. If the Mets wanted to maximize his starts, they were not going to have to pitch him today or Sunday. He would have to have pitched a day earlier, which they had the option to do. They did not take it. They kept with a 6-man rotation. So what we know is he has 2 more starts. 12 1/3 innings is very possible. I mean, I don't want to say it's likely, but go through what Nolan McLean has done. In fact, let's check his start. So this recent start was 6 innings, 0 runs. His start before that was 5 1/3, 1 runs. His start before that was 6 innings, 2 runs. His start before that was 8 scoreless innings. His start before that was 7 innings. And his start before that, his major league debut, was 5 1/3. So his track record tells you he's probably going to go 6, but if he's economical, he could go 7 or 8. Let me just make this warning to David Stearns and Carlos Mendoza. Do not make pitching decisions in terms of taking McLean out of a game based on rookie status. Don't do it. It is I'm laughing because they won't do it. I'm not worried about it. I'm just fascinated by the information. Like, if he gets to 50 innings, so be it. His last 2 starts will likely be really, really important. You know, if somehow the Mets go out and they sweep the Padres and they sweep the Nationals and they win the first 2 games against the Cubs, they have an 8-game winning streak and they have clinched a playoff spot. You want to manage his innings a little bit? Well, you probably should anyway, because you want to have him lined up the game 1 of the wild card series. But as long as these games matter, that should not be a factor. But just keep it in mind, he's 12 1/3 innings away from losing his rookie status, which would eliminate him from winning Rookie of the Year next year, which would eliminate the Mets potentially from garnering themselves a draft pick. Now, let me get to Reed Garrett. It's over, bro. And when I say bro, I'm not talking to Reed Garrett. He's a major leaguer. He's trying his hardest. I'm talking to Carlos Mendoza. It is over. He is no longer in the circle of trust. Brooks Raley, despite an uneven performance on Sunday, he was pitching in a back-to-back, which he's only done a handful of times. Remember, he's coming off Tommy John surgery. Brooks Raley, Tyler Rogers, Edwin Diaz. That's it. Reed Garrett, since coming off the injured list, has been awful. He comes into this game in the 7th inning with 2 on and 2 out and a 2-run lead, and he gets ahead of Wyatt Langford, and he loses him, and he walks him, and then promptly gives up a 2-run single to a guy hitting 180 in Jock Peterson. The only way I will give Reed Garrett a little bit of credit is that he didn't completely implode because he got Adolis Garcia out to keep the game tied. But Reed Garrett can no longer be a guy that you trust. He just can't be. And I know they're running out of guys, but this is why moving starters to the bullpen may help him out a little bit. Because if you can tag team games, more on that in a few minutes, you may not need to go to your bullpen in the 7th inning or sometimes the 6th inning. What is going to help this team, if God forbid they can just get through this and make the postseason, is the playoffs are such a different animal because of all the off days that you can just use your best relievers virtually every game. You really can. I want to give you information about the division series, but I don't want to because I feel like they're not going to the division series. So why bother talking about all the off days that are in it? I'll just leave it generic. There's a lot of off days in the division series. I'll leave it at that. But Reed Garrett can no longer be trusted. And did anybody actually think after they built a 2-0 lead in this game, an RBI ground out by Juan Soto where Francisco Alvarez was really, really aggressive in scoring, and Rowdy Tellez paused slightly to tag the bag to get Soto out and not immediately throw home? If he immediately throws home, Alvarez is out. So here's a spot where Juan Soto comes up, runner on third, less than 2 outs, and didn't really get the job done. He got the job done, but he didn't get the job done. The pause by Tellez, the slide by Alvarez is what got the job done. But whatever. Beggars can't be choosers. The Mets don't score a lot of runs. They've barely done anything since really Detroit. Think about what they've done offensively. They scored 5 in their last win against the Reds. Here's what they scored during the losing streak. 3-2-0, 3-3, 4-3-2. So when you get a run, I'll take it. But then Brandon Nimmo, who has not been supplying extra base hits recently, goes left center for a home run to put him up 2-0. And then the bullpen blows it, which made it feel like Saturday. It was basically the same game. Get a great, well-pitched game by one of your kids, have your offense do nothing, but then take a 1-0 lead, then take a 2-0 lead on a solo home run, and then watch your bullpen dump it. It was the same thing. The difference was after Garrett dumped it, Rogers, Diaz, Stanek do a great job, and obviously the Met offense finally breaks through on the Pete Alonso 3-run home run. Before we name the Rico I'm the Man Now star of the series and the net negative, let's get to some of your emails. We'll also get into the rotation and what's going on. Let's start it off with William. William wrote this email 6 minutes ago. So I'm going to start with the most recent, then I'll go back to the past. William writes, Evan, glad they won today, but we have to be honest about this season. Even with the pitching issues this year, I still do not believe this team has played up to its talent. Mendy is not a strong in-game manager, and I do not believe he possesses the track record to hold veteran players accountable. I saw that Bruce Bochy is probably leaving Texas after the year, but is not retiring. This team is a championship-level team going forward, and we do not have time to wait for Mendy to grow into the job. I think after this disaster inevitably ends, the Mets should go get Bruce Bochy, get a young bench coach to be the heir apparent. I'm not ready to fire the manager despite all my issues with the manager this season, but that is my kryptonite. My kryptonite is Bruce Bochy because he's a Hall of Fame manager. He's one of the great managers of our era. So if you tell me you have a chance to bring in one of the greatest managers over the last 50 years, it would be irresponsible for me to say no. I can't say that. Want some more Mendy criticisms? This is Ryan who writes, Evan, I've been an advocate for Mendy all season throughout the struggles, but it seems like he never pushes the right buttons with the in-game player and SP bullpen decisions. And with this team in a free fall, he does not seem to have the answers to what's wrong and can't seem to either fire the players up or help stop the bleeding. With the team looking so lifeless, other than a shield mouthpiece for the team as a whole, what other value does an MLB manager bring if he doesn't have a feel for in-game lineup pitching decisions and can't seemingly hold players accountable and fire them up? No, Ryan, that's what the manager's job is. I mean, there isn't much else. The way you handle a locker room is very tough for us to measure because we're not in the locker room. But yeah, I think communication with players, guys knowing their roles, maximizing the best out of them, and then, yeah, obviously the in-game decisions. Joe writes, Evan, great win, but somehow I wasn't excited when Pete hit the walk-off. Rather relieved. I felt like this team has sucked the excitement out of me, wondering if you felt the same way. I did feel the same way in terms of not being excited. And I don't know if that's all the Jets' fault, because they also sucked the life out of me with a lifeless, unprepared, boring, dull, disgusting performance in getting annihilated by the Buffalo Bills. And I admit on my football Sundays, my emotion is so stuck with the football team that sometimes it spills into what happens with the baseball team. But I don't think it was the Jets' fault. I think it was the Mets' fault. I think you're right. you're right. I mean, they've lost 8 in a row. The feeling is relief, not excitement. The feeling was, oh, great. They won a freaking game, especially this one, considering they had a lead in the 7th inning and they blew it. So, yeah, I think relief is probably the best way to describe the way I felt when Pete hit that home run. Jose writes, Dear Evan, the Mets are making the playoffs. Very simple message. The Mets are making the playoffs. Here's my answer. They better. Now, here's Dan. Once called Negative Dan, now Realistic Dan. Here's Dan's thoughts on this incredible victory. Being at the game. Oh, Dan was at the game? I didn't know that. Being at the game, I felt like I was in a cemetery for 99.9% of the entire day. Alvarez scoring on the Soto grounder and Nimmo's home run gave some juice, but then Reed Garrett decided to give it all back, and it reverted into being a funeral procession. Then, by some miracle, Ryan Stanek doesn't give up a run with a guy literally starting in scoring position with nobody out. And Pete decided it was October 3rd, 2024, and couldn't have placed the ball more in the same spot if he tried. That was one of the best wins they've had all year. So I'm sure there's zero way they'll squander this momentum, and you can definitely trust this core. Extend everyone. You can feel that sarcasm. Yeah, the Mets now need to respond. That is the absolute point. They have to respond. And I don't care about the talent on the San Diego Padres. They've been a mediocre team for a while, though they've owned the Mets for the last couple of years. Beat the Padres. The Nationals? I don't normally say you have to sweep this team. Even when they played the Rockies in Colorado, it was like, you know what? Go win 2 out of 3. They have to sweep the Nationals. They have to sweep the Nationals because not that the Nationals are some beyond pathetic team, but the Mets lost 2 out of 3 to them a couple of weeks ago, and the Mets need a hot streak. And what a perfect way to get a hot streak than ending your home regular season schedule and probably their home season in general by beating the crap out of a team in your division that's not any good. But yes, Dan's right. The biggest question is, what do they now do with the newfound momentum? Now, before we get to the Rico star of the series and the net negative, I love when people do this. Howard has his opinion on some net negative candidates and some Rico, I'm the man now stars of the series. But before that, there was a celebration with the Mets actually winning a game. And you could celebrate your highlights with Mio Sparkling Sake, a true crowd pleaser. Light, bubbly, and easy to enjoy. Whether you're at Citi Field or your favorite spot, ask for Mio Sparkling Sake by name. A new tradition, served chilled, imported from Japan, the official sake of Rico Brogna. Enjoy responsibly. Howard writes, here are his star candidates: Stanek, McLean, Sproat, Soto, and Pete. And his, quote, bum candidates are Tong, Mullins, Lindor, and Beatty. Let's start with the negative. Let's start with the net negative. It's easy to simply say Jonah Tong. It really is. And I think if Jonah Tong wasn't making his 3rd major league start, it would be Jonah Tong. I think what keeps me from just saying it's him and moving on is the fact that he is a kid who only made 2 starts at AAA. Nolan McLean proved he was ready. We weren't sure if Jonah Tong was ready. I think most of us were surprised when they called him up. But a lot of it was based on, yes, the success of his season at AA, but also a need that the Mets were having. So were the Mets desperate to call him up? They were desperate in terms of their current state of the rotation, but he had also earned it with his performance. If Clay Holmes goes 2/3 of an inning and allows 6 runs on a Friday night against Jacob deGrom, it's open and shut. But I think the nature of Tong and his youth gives you pause. Francisco Lindor is another great candidate, even though he ended up getting on base 3 times in the finale of this series, and he wasn't 0 for 15. He was just a very quiet 3 for 12. The defensive play on Saturday was a killer. It wasn't called an error, but it should have been. So I agree he is worthy of at least discussing as the net negative. Brett Beatty, yes, can't get picked off. Can't happen. I think the other candidate is Reed Garrett. Reed Garrett comes in 2-0 lead. Mets are on an 8-game losing streak. Walks a guy, gives up a 2-run hit. I think Edwin Diaz is a fair candidate, considering he blew the game essentially twice on Saturday. Once when he gave up the RBI double, and then twice with 2 outs when he gave up the hit to Wyatt Langford. So I think Edwin Diaz is a great candidate as well. But ultimately, I'm not that nice of a guy. The net negative is Jonathan. So was that my I rope-a-doped everybody? Look, I pause because of his youth. I pause because they're asking so much from him. But when you're on a major league mound, you're held to standard. And getting knocked out in the first inning of a game when you're facing Jacob deGrom and you're currently on a losing streak and giving your team no chance by being down 6-0, I'm sorry. Sorry, Jonah, you're the net negative. Where the hell are you, Hoffman?
I'm driving, and I hear you protect Jonathan and then give him the net negative. You can't do that. Because, first of all, it was an impossible task going up against Jacob deGrom. He was never going to win that game anyway. If anything, I'd give it to the offense before anybody else because they were supposed to score more than 3 runs. They had opportunities to. And then when deGrom got out of the game, they should have found a way to come back. Instead, the bullpen blew it. Don't give it to Jonathan. No, that's terrible. Guy did not deserve that awful position that he was put in.
All right, so who should be the net negative? You want to give it to Reed Garrett? You want to give it to Edwin Diaz? You want to give it to Lindor? Like, give me a name then. If you're so protective of Jonathan because he needs you to protect him like he's a baby, who do you want to give it to?
Give it to Edwin Diaz. That's the guy. Because he literally blew a game.
All right, you got me. Now, Edwin Diaz did bounce back by giving them a scoreless inning in the finale of this series, but he was lucky. He did give up a leadoff hit to Kyle Higashioka and then allowed a guy to steal second base. So, look, I have a heart, and I admit that Tong's youth and inexperience and the situation he's in softened me to not just say it's open and shut, and it softened me enough to let you convince me, okay, fine, it's Edwin Diaz.
Good. I'm glad we came to that decision together because honestly, Jonathan, he doesn't need anything negative right now. He already had a bad day, bad game. I think he's going to be a good pitcher in this league. I think right now they put it easy over his head. I don't really think that it's like calling up Jet Williams right now and expecting him to deliver in center field.
Well, then here's the key question to all that. He's made 3 major league starts. His first one was fine, but very tough to judge. He was pitching with a 12-0 lead. His second start was average, gave up a bunch of home runs, walked a few guys. His third start was a disaster. Are you willing to give him another start? Because it feels like the Mets are. And the reason I say that is we know that Sean Manaea is going to the bullpen. We know that Kodai Senga is going to get another start in the minor leagues. His first one was really, really good. So it appears that Jonathan is going to pitch Thursday afternoon against the San Diego Padres. It's not official, but it seems likely. Since he's so young and you're giving him an excuse for what happened on Friday, wouldn't that then mean that he should not be in the rotation?
Yes, 100% he shouldn't be in the rotation. However, I have a question for you. Who else do they have? They're putting Manaea in the bullpen now. Kodai Senga's still in the minors. Like, there's nobody else.
Yeah. Well, the nobody else card is true. I mean, they have other options. It's just not great ones. Like Sean Manaea could have remained in the rotation. I actually was encouraged by the way his start in Philadelphia concluded with the strong finish. But we've talked for a while about Manaea and Holmes and even Senga not being able to go deep in a game, so why not tag them up? And that's clearly what they're going to do Tuesday night with Clay Holmes on the mound. Here's what I would consider. So the Mets have an off day. They're also now going back to a 5-man rotation. But because they have an off day, they could pitch a few guys on regular rest, 4 days rest, and skip someone. So Clay Holmes is going to pitch Tuesday with Sean Manaea coming out of the bullpen, which is a great plan. And I would consider very strongly, even if Clay Holmes gives you 4 scoreless innings and his pitch count is low, I would consider, hey, I'm going to beat the collapse. I'm going to jump before he ends up wearing down. I'm going to Sean Manaea anyway. Now, we saw them tag team right before the All-Star break against Kansas City, and Manaea looked great. But I like that plan, even though I was encouraged by the conclusion of Sean Manaea, because I like that plan because now in a game, you may not have to go to 4 or 5 relievers. You may be able to get 9 innings out of both of those guys. I mean, 5 plus 4 is 9. You ain't asking that much. But then Wednesday would be David Peterson. Fine. Thursday's supposed to be Tong's day. How about you skip him and you throw Brandon Sproat on Thursday afternoon? Remember, he pitched Saturday, so Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That would be regular rest. And then Nolan McLean on Friday against Washington. Or Jonah Tong Friday against Washington. What about moving Tong back a couple of days so instead of facing the star-powered filled San Diego Padres, he faces the Washington Nationals? You almost give him a softer landing spot in theory. I would very much consider that because I would give Jonah Tong another start. Now, it may be his last start because the Mets have another off day on the following Monday, and then you got your final 6 games of the year. And I'm not sure I feel comfortable with him making one of those starts. Let's see where they are. Let's see what the standings look like. And plus, Kodai Senga is going to deserve to come back. I know a lot of people don't love Kodai Senga or they don't trust Kodai Senga, but he went down to AAA and he dominated. If he has another start in which he dominates, you're not going to be willing to roll the dice that maybe Kodai Senga figured something out? I would. In fact, if it was up to me, clearly it's not, I'd have him back now. He had one good start down there. He got his confidence back. Let's go. It's go time. Because I do think Jonah Tong could be a weapon out of the bullpen. I'm not burying the kid. You could use him as a tag team effort, much like they're using with Manaea and Holmes. He could be brilliant for an inning. I mean, he could just be a guy who comes in, strikes out the side in the 7th, and we're good to go. Or you can use him for multiple innings. But as of right now, it looks like it's Holmes, Manaea Tuesday, Peterson Wednesday, and if they continue in the same order, it would be Tong Thursday against the Padres, Sproat Friday against the Nats, McLean Saturday against the Nats, and then Clay Holmes back on Sunday with Manaea technically available out of the bullpen. That would line up the final 6 games to look like this. And remember, you could insert Kodai Senga wherever the hell you want. Let's figure in the Tong spot. Peterson, Sproat, or I should say Peterson, Senga, Sproat, McLean, Holmes, Peterson to conclude the season. Obviously, if they clinch a playoff spot, dare I say, they could alter those last couple of days. But that's what this rotation is looking like. Anyhow, let's get to the Rico I'm the man now star of the series. Who were Howard's candidates again? Let me see. Stanek, McLean, Sproat, Soto, Alonso. Well, I mean, Juan Soto. We're giving it to Juan Soto? What the hell did Juan Soto do in this? What the hell did he do? I know he drove in a run in each game, but he had a sacrifice fly in game 1, hit a home run in game 2, went 2 for 5. Yippity-doo-dah. It was a good game. Good game, too. No problem with that. And he was 0 for 4 in game 3 with the RBI that was very lucky. So, no, Juan Soto is not the man now. Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso's a fine candidate. He didn't do a lot impactfully in the first 2 games of this series. He was 0 for 3 in the DeGrom game with an RBI. He did go 2 for 5 in game 2, but when he came up at the biggest spot of them all, he swung through a curveball. He did hit the 3-run home run that won them the game. So I think Pete is a fine candidate. Both Sproat and McLean, great candidates. Both through 6 scoreless innings. No fault of their own that they didn't get victories. Both guys did a hell of a job. But the Rico I'm the man now star of the series, I can't believe I'm saying it, is Ryan Stanek. It's got to be Ryan Stanek. Ryan Stanek came in to the worst spot you can come into. A tie game, 8-game losing streak, runner on second, nobody out. And by some miracle, he got through it. And just as an add-on, mentioned this earlier in the Rico, on Friday when the Mets were trying to come back, trailing against Jacob deGrom 6-0, they needed their bullpen to give an A-plus effort to keep them in the game. They got it from Huascar Brazoban, who was also an honorable mention, and they got it from Stanek. So Ryan Stanek ends up going 2 2/3 scoreless innings in this 3-game series, but he's the hero of Game 3. Hoff, you're not going to argue with this, right? Ryan Stanek, for the first time ever, is the man now.
That's it. Fat Thor deserves it. He looked very spiffy during the weekend, and congratulations, Fat Thor.
Fat Thor is what he said for those that couldn't hear it. Ryan Stanek is a 3-time net negative award winner and a 0-time I'm the man now star of the series, but that now changes. Ryan Stanek has done it, and it is well-deserved. Congratulations. Let's get to some more of your emails. Remember, you can always email the podcast, the ricob@gmail.com, the ricob@gmail.com. This is from Kendrick concerning the rotation. With the off day, Sean and I felt like the obvious choice to be skipped. Unfortunately, they didn't consider flipping McLean and Sproat this weekend, which could have opened the door for McLean to get 4 starts down the stretch. Yes, if McLean had pitched Saturday, which would have been his normal rest day, then the Mets could have manipulated it to where he would have gotten 3 more starts. But they didn't do that. I don't know if they wanted McLean on 4 days rest, 4 times in a row. But that would have been the only way that McLean could have gotten that bonus start in. That said, pulling Sproat after 70 pitches now makes a lot of sense. I was fine with the move in real time, but it's clear Mendy knew the young arms were going to be operating on less days of rest as we transition into a 5-man rotation. Also, don't trust pitchers coming with runners on. Keep an eye out for Tong going to the bullpen if Senga looks good in his next start. I believe they're slated to start on the same day, and I can see that becoming another tag team. And so with our tag team division now in check, we need to acknowledge Juan Cena and Pete John Cena Alonso coming through with late-inning home runs this weekend. It's only fitting on the show you ooze and exude the mantra, never give up, and have an attitude adjustment as our new tag teams and 5-man rotations, a.k.a. the 5-knuckle shuffle, brings new hope. Appreciate you continuing to keep this conversation going. It's been fun projecting and predicting the handling of this rotation. Never give up. You got to believe. Yeah, I think Tong is definitely a candidate to kind of be a part of a tag team. Tommy writes, there are still so many problems with this team. The bats need to fully wake up again, and I don't trust our bullpen as far as I can throw. While all that's true, I'll say it's nice to win one. A walk-off like that is nice. It is. It's relieving, would be the term I'd use. Casey writes, Ev, I still believe we're going to miss the playoffs and everyone should be fired. However, I have no choice but to root for my team to make it to the dance. With that said, this San Francisco-Arizona series is now monstrous. What do you think? Arizona will probably end up with the tiebreaker against us. So do we root for San Francisco? But that puts the Giants closer. 2-1 San Francisco? Is that best case? 2-1 Arizona to knock San Francisco back a bit. I can't believe we have to live and die with a series between 2 deadline sellers, but here we are. Great question. It's such a great, geeky, I can't believe we're in this situation question, but it's a good one. Anyhow, the Mets have 73 losses. Let's only look at losses. Those are the only things that matter because you can't make up the losses. You can make up the wins. The Mets have 73 losses. The Giants have 74 losses. So the Mets are really 2 ahead of San Francisco because the Mets have the tiebreaker on the Giants. The Reds and the Diamondbacks have 75 losses. Both of those teams will have the tiebreaker. The Reds for sure, Arizona likely. And the reason I say likely is because since they split the season series, it goes to divisional record. the record you have against your division. The Mets are 23-23 against the NL East, and the Diamondbacks are 23-20 against the NL West. While that is close, I can't imagine a scenario where the Diamondbacks are going to lose those 3 games and still manage to tie the Mets, because the Diamondbacks are playing nothing but their division outside of 3 games against San Diego. So I'm trying to walk my head through how I guess that could happen. And by the way, I don't even know what the next tiebreaker is after divisional record, but they've got 9 of their last 12 games against the NL West. So if they went 5-4 against them, and let's say they swept the Phillies, so they go 8-4, but they only go 5-4 against their division, and the Mets go 6-0 against the Nationals and the Marlins, which would give them the tiebreaker on the Diamondbacks. But let's say they lost all 6 to the Padres. I guess that's how we get there. I guess that's how we get to where Arizona and the Mets are tied, and the Mets would have the tiebreaker. Either way, it's just unlikely that Arizona won't have the tiebreaker. So here's the way I look at it. Because the Giants are 2 games back and the Diamondbacks are technically 2 games back, it's really a take your pick on who you want to have win the series. You don't want a sweep. You want someone to just win 2 out of 3. And I think probably based on the difficulty of the Diamondbacks schedule, you'd prefer they win. Because after Arizona plays the Giants, they play the Phillies, they play the Dodgers, and they play the Padres. The Giants, on the other hand, after they're done with Arizona, do play the Dodgers, but then they play the Cardinals and the Rockies. So based on the Giants' schedule being softer, I would say you root for the Diamondbacks to win 2 out of 3. That would be my answer to that. As far as Cincinnati is concerned, they play St. Louis for 3 in St. Louis, 4 at home against the Cubbies, 3 at home against the Pirates, and then 3 in Milwaukee against the Brewers. But what can you expect from the Reds? They're an enigma. They just got swept in Sacramento. So what do you expect from them? Either way, right now, the Mets have a 2-game lead. That's the way I look at it. They have a 2-game lead on the Giants, a 2-game lead on Arizona, a 2-game lead on Cincinnati. And what's worrisome, as I mentioned at the top about a 2-game lead, is the Mets have 12 games left. 8-4 sounds good, but what if the Reds go 10-2? And I know that's not something you predict or you feel confident about, considering they just got swept by the A's, but it's baseball. I mean, a team can't go win 10 out of 12. That's the danger zone the Mets are in. But let us hope that this is the win that just turns their season around. This is the win that gets them to relax, and this is the win that gets them hot against some good competition with the San Diego Padres coming to town, and then obviously the Washington Nationals before they hit the road. We do appreciate you listening and checking out the Rico Brogna. You can always email us with your opinions, thoughts, critiques, thericob@gmail.com, thericob@gmail.com. We ended up doing Ricos after each of these games against the Texas Rangers. Sometimes that happens. The only thing we can guarantee you is we will always give you a Rico Brogna when a series ends. So this series ended. You always knew we'd be here for you. Same thing with the San Diego series. They do play on a Thursday afternoon, so you'll have to wait a little bit, but at some point Thursday night, you'll definitely get your series recap of the Rico Brogna, and you may get some instant reactions. That's why you should subscribe, and you'll never miss one. Thank you very much for hanging out with us on another edition of Rico Brogna.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Rico Brogna podcast. It's amazing, isn't it? Make sure you download it now to keep it on you at all times.